Welcome, fellow historians, to a journey beyond the known chronicles of the Imperium. We often speak of Paul Atreides, the rise of the God Emperor, and the scattering. The forgotten lore, decipher the cryptic symbols, and piece together the epic sagas that shaped humanity's destiny among the stars. Subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss our first expedition into the deep past. The spice isn't the only treasure Arrakis holds.
In those forgotten centuries, the Sisterhood whispered of a child who could walk where no mind had ever walked. A child who could stand at the edge of time and step beyond it. They called him Kwisatz Haderach, the one who shortens the path. But the truth is harsher. He was not born from prophecy. He was engineered from fear. For the Bene Gesserit sought a weapon shaped from bloodlines and silence. A mind vast enough to see the hidden future, and obedient enough to kneel before the Sisterhood. Yet in their hunger to control destiny, they summoned something that rejected control. Something that shattered the path instead of shortening it. And so the chronicles ask, what happens when those who claim to shape history accidentally create the one who will break it? The answer begins in a whisper and ends in a revolution. In those days, the Imperium drifted beneath a veil of certainty. Empires rose. Empires fell. But the Bene Gesserit endured, patient as stone, deliberate as tide. For millennia, the Sisterhood pursued a single question. A question older than the Carino throne, older than the great schools themselves. Can humanity be guided, not by force, but by design? This was their quiet religion. A belief that bloodlines could be shaped as carefully as politics. That the human soul could be tuned like a string. That destiny could be bred. Yet beneath this calm philosophy lay a darker truth. Every generation carried the scars of the Butlerian Jihad. That ancient war where mankind shattered its own creations, and vowed never again to build a machine in the likeness of a human mind. But the fear remained. The fear of repeating the sins of the machines. The fear of building something that could think beyond its makers. And the Sisterhood believed that if the universe must someday face a mind of such magnitude, then they should be the ones to forge it. Thus was born the dream of the Kwisatz Haderach. A being who could bridge the impossible distances between past and future, who could step into the shadows where their own prescient vision failed, and who would follow the path they carved for him. But every dream carries a blind spot, and every prophecy carries a flaw. The Sisterhood believed they understood the cost of creation. They did not. And the question that haunted their entire order is the same question that guides this chronicle. What happens when those who believe they control fate create a fate that refuses to be controlled? The answer lies buried in bloodline, silence, and one forbidden choice. A choice that would ignite the greatest shock the Imperium had ever seen. An emotional shift begins here, from quiet philosophy to the vast weight of history. In those forgotten epics, before the fall of houses and the rise of prophets, the Bene Gesserit moved like shadows between empires. Silent, patient, unseen. So the chronicles say, they were not merely an order of women. They were custodians of memory, archivists of trauma, survivors of the Butlerian fire. For after humanity destroyed the thinking machines, the universe trembled with a new question. If no artificial mind may guide us, who will guide us instead? The Sisterhood answered with a whisper, we will. Not through conquest. Not through force, but through bloodline. And so began the great eugenic tapestry, a web of marriages, pairings, genetic fusions designed to sculpt human potential across centuries. Each union was a thread, each child a stepping stone, each generation a quiet experiment. This was no reckless ambition. It was a response to the deepest wound in human memory. Mankind had once given its destiny to machines. It would never do so again. But the universe still needed order, still needed vision, still needed a mind that could see beyond the limits of ordinary perception. The Sisterhood sought to create such a mind, a prescient bridge between the possible and the forbidden, a human who could peer into the corridors of time without going mad, A human who could replace the cold logic of the machines with something far more dangerous. Human intuition sharpened into prophecy. Yet there was a barrier no Reverend Mother could cross. A secret folded region deep within the visionary spectrum. A place where their awareness recoiled. A void that only terrified them. They called it the place where they could not go. The unconscious gulf. The male line's forbidden realm. A psychic gap carved by evolution, or perhaps by design. And in that darkness lay every future they could not predict. Every danger they could not avert. Every thread they could not weave. So the Sisterhood asked a radical question. If no woman can enter that place, what if a man could? A man trained in the Bene Gesserit ways. A man with access to ancestral memories. A man capable of seeing with both the female and male line. With no blind spot, no void, no silence. Such a being would be unstoppable. A visionary commander. A strategist of centuries. A nexus of past and future. A Kwisatz Haderach, the shortening of the way. But destiny is never a straight line. And the birth of such a being required patience, precision, and ruthless control. Across generations, the Sisterhood manipulated the noble houses. The Atreides with their honor, the Harkonnens with their cruelty, the Carinos with their imperial pride. From each they drew blood. From each they gathered traits. From each they harvested potential. The plan was flawless. The timeline is perfect. The final step was almost within reach. One more generation. One more carefully arranged union. One last pairing in the great tapestry of human design. From the union of Duke Leto Atreides and Lady Jessica, the Sisterhood intended a daughter. A daughter who would wed a Harkonnen heir, healing an ancient wound and merging two bloodlines into one. From that line, the Kwisatz Haderach would rise. Obedient, shaped, preordained. A perfect future. A controlled messiah. A weapon to be aimed at the universe. But the chronicles remind us, when humans attempt to sculpt the future often rebels. And in the quiet cells of Wallach 9, a single choice formed. A choice made not by an empire, but by one woman. Jessica's defiance did not begin with anger. It began with love. Forbidden love, yes, but love all the same. When ordered to bear a daughter, she bore a son. When told to continue the Sisterhood's path, she created a path of her own. When instructed to follow destiny, she changed it. Her decision fractured 10,000 years of planning. Her son would not be the obedient messiah the Sisterhood envisioned. He would be something else. Something they could not predict. Something they could not control. This is the moment the Bene Gesserit chronicles refuse to name plainly. The moment when the great tapestry began to tear. For the Kwisatz Haderach was no longer theirs. And as the Sisterhood soon discovered, he was far more than they ever intended. A tremor passed through the Imperium that day. A small one, barely noticed. But every empire-shaking storm begins with a quiet shift. And the shift was the beginning of a catastrophe disguised as a miracle. The emotional lens narrows now, from vast history to the intimate fracture that will reshape an empire. The Bene Gesserit had spent millennia mastering control. Control of voices. Control of bodies. Control of bloodlines. Control of possibility itself. But nothing escapes the oldest paradox of power. The more tightly you grasp destiny, the more easily it slips through your fingers. Jessica's forbidden choice was not merely disobedience. It was treason against a prophecy. A disruption in a lineage calculated across 10,000 years. A single deviation with the weight of apocalypse. And yet, in the private chambers of Wallach 9, the Sisterhood did not rage. They whispered. They analyzed. They calculated anew. Because the truth struck them quickly and coldly. A son born now might be the Kwisatz Haderach. Not in the next generation. Not under their supervision. Not with their ritual safeguards. Too soon. Too wild. Too unpredictable. And unpredictability is the one thing the Sisterhood had sworn to eliminate from human evolution. Still they hoped the boy might be shaped, trimmed, bent to their will. But hope is a fragile thread when woven into fear. For even as the Sisterhood debated, another truth emerged. If the Kwisatz Haderach were born early, he would not be theirs. He would belong to chance, to culture, to the house that raised him, to the planet that shaped him, to the storms that carved him. A weapon without a sheath, a prophecy without a leash, a future without a master. And then the second fracture appeared, not from Jessica, not from Leto, but from the universe itself. The boy, Paul Atreides, showed signs far too early. Dreams, premonitions, instinctive awareness beyond any training a child should possess. He spoke of places no sister had ever seen. He sensed dangers no mentat could calculate. He began to touch the place where they could not go. Not fully, not safely, but enough for the Reverend Mothers to realize the truth. He was awakening on his own, without ritual, without guidance, without control. This was the Bene Gesserit nightmare. A Kwisatz Haderach unlocking his mind faster than they could cage it. At the same time, political storms gathered. Baron Harkonnen plotted the destruction of House Atreides. Emperor Shaddam IV feared Duke Leto's rising popularity. CM board members whispered about spice control and shifting alliances. The Sisterhood watched all of it, realizing a terrible convergence. A premature Kwisatz Haderach was forming at the exact moment the Imperium itself was fracturing. A mind awakening into chaos. Prophecy colliding with politics. A creation born into fire rather than ceremony. This was not destiny. This was detonation. And within their own ranks, a deeper dread took hold. If Paul reached the place, they could not go. If he bridged the male and female ancestral lines, if he awakened fully, then the Sisterhood's power would become irrelevant. Their manipulation of houses would become dust. Their monopoly on prophecy would collapse. Their control of human evolution would end. Imagine holding the keys to history for 10,000 years, only to watch a child pick the lock. But the greatest shock came from the boy himself. For when the Sisterhood tested him with the Gom Jabbar, expecting fear, expecting weakness, expecting submission, he endured. He did what even trained initiates struggled to do. He mastered his nerves, his pain, his instincts, himself. And in that moment, the Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mohayim felt it. That shifting pressure, that impossible presence, that widening corridor of time. The Kwisatz Haderach was no longer hypothetical. He was breathing, but he was not obedient. He was not theirs. He was Atreides. He was Jessica's. He was something new. The Sisterhood had wanted a bridge. But what they found instead, there was a storm. And storms do not serve. Storms devour. Meanwhile, Paul's visions deepened. Fragments of blood, echoes of the desert, a jihad spreading across the stars, a golden throne rising from flame. He saw paths where humanity survived, and paths where it extinguished itself. He tasted futures so vast the Bene Gesserit dared not look. But here lies the central paradox. The Sisterhood believed they were creating a savior for humanity. Instead, they created a human who could see too much. A human burdened by infinite futures. A human whose first steps into prescience terrified even himself. Still, the Bene Gesserit clung to a final hope. Perhaps he could be guided. Perhaps he could be shaped. Perhaps the early arrival of the Kwisatz Haderach was not a catastrophe, but an opportunity. Yet every analysis ended the same way. He was awakening faster than their plans. He was slipping through their fingers like sand. He was becoming something beyond their comprehension. And then came Arrakis. The desert, the spice, the catalyst of every vision he feared. The birthplace of gods and monsters. The Sisterhood knew what Arrakis could do to an awakening mind. It could accelerate it, explode it, complete it, or destroy it. And as the Atreides prepared for the transfer of power to Dune, the Reverend Mothers realized the truth they could not unsee. Paul's arrival on Arrakis would not delay the prophecy. It would fulfill it. Too early, too fiercely, too completely. Thus, the central conflict crystallized. The Bene Gesserit had created the Kwisatz Haderach, but the universe had claimed him before they could. A being they needed, a being they feared, a being who would either save humanity or unleash its darkest destiny. And as Paul stepped onto the sands of Arrakis, the Sisterhood's greatest dream became its greatest threat. The chronicles fall silent here for a moment, not out of ignorance, but out of dread. The next step in Paul's journey would reveal the truth the Bene Gesserit feared most. The moment when creation escapes the creator, and then the universe changes forever. The emotional field shifts again, from conflict to revelation, from the events themselves to the meaning beneath them. In those days, the Sisterhood believed they were guardians of humanity's future. But the chronicles, when read with clearer eyes, reveal a different truth. They were guardians of their own future, and they mistook that for the future of mankind. The birth of the Kwisatz Haderach exposes this illusion. It reveals the most dangerous paradox in human history. When we try to create perfection, we often create catastrophe. Paul Atreides was not merely the product of a breeding program. He was the mirror the Bene Gesserit refused to face. A reflection of their own fear. A testament to the unpredictability of human potential. And a warning against the arrogance of design. For what the Sisterhood sought was not freedom, not enlightenment, not transcendence. They sought control disguised as prophecy. They wanted to remove chaos from human evolution, to freeze the future into a single, predictable shape. But life resists prediction. Evolution resists mastery. And the human soul, when compressed into a design, eventually breaks its mold. It is the nature of consciousness to rebel. Paul's early awakening exposed the lie at the core of the Sisterhood's philosophy. They believed the future could be sculpted like clay. But the future is not clay. It is a wildfire. It moves. It spreads. It transforms both creator and created. This is why Paul frightened them. Not because he was powerful, but because he shattered their illusion of control. When Paul glimpsed the branching futures, when he tasted the terror of possible jihad, when he felt the weight of humanity's survival pressing on him like a storm, he became the living embodiment of the Bene Gesserit's greatest blind spot. He saw consequences they had never considered. And in those visions lies the deepest philosophical wound in the entire Dune universe. The Kwisatz Haderach was born to save humanity, yet his very existence threatened to destroy it. A savior who might become a tyrant, a liberator who might unleash holy war, a prophet who could drown the Imperium in fire. This contradiction reveals Frank Herbert's central warning, that every attempt to create a perfect leader eventually produces someone powerful enough to become a perfect tyrant. The Bene Gesserit wanted a guided, obedient Messiah, but a controlled Messiah is not a Messiah at all. A being shaped to serve another's vision cannot see the truth, only the path they were forced to walk. Paul's rebellion was not merely against the Sisterhood. It was against the concept of engineered destiny itself, against the idea that humanity can be nudged, sculpted, or bred into safety. He showed that prophecy is never neutral. Every vision reveals what it fears. Every oracle carries its own doom. And every attempt to shape the future is an attempt to escape responsibility. The Bene Gesserit believed they could create a mind vast enough to hold the future. But Herbert reminds us, no single mind should ever hold that burden. For when Paul saw the paths ahead, he saw something unbearable. He saw that to refuse power would plunge humanity into oblivion, and to accept power would ignite a jihad that would kill billions. Two futures. Both were drenched in blood, both sealed by his birth. Thus, the philosophical tragedy emerges. The Sisterhood's attempt to eliminate uncertainty created the most dangerous uncertainty in history. They tried to design a savior. They created a judge. They tried to shorten the path. They unleashed a path with no end. They tried to master time. They birthed a mind enslaved by it. Paul's struggle becomes a universal metaphor, a mirror for every society that seeks salvation through a single hero, a single ideology, a single engineered answer. Because the moment you place all hope into one being, you give that being the power to shape the world in its own image. And no mind, no matter how prescient, can carry such weight without consequence. In modern terms, the Bene Gesserit represent every institution that tries to plan humanity like a spreadsheet. every government that tries to design the ideal citizen, every algorithm that claims to predict who we will become, every authority that imagines it can steer an entire species without ever losing control. But control is the oldest illusion of all. The universe bends to no ideology. History obeys no program. And the future cannot be engineered like a child. Paul Atreides is the embodiment of this truth. A bridge no one could cross. A path no one could shorten. A warning written in flesh and vision. He is the living echo of humanity's greatest flaw. Our desire to predict the future is often surpassed only by our terror of what the future actually brings. And that is why the chronicles speak of him with such awe and dread. He was not a mistake. He was not an accident. He was the inevitable outcome of a species trying to cage its own evolution. The Bene Gesserit looked into the abyss, and the abyss looked back through Paul. Through his fear, through his visions, through the jihad that loomed over every possible tomorrow. In the end, the birth of the Kwisatz Haderach carries a meaning far more profound than the Sisterhood ever imagined. When you attempt to create a god, you must be prepared for a god that refuses to be yours. This is the echo that lingers in the ancient texts. This is the wound that shaped centuries. This is the truth the Imperium tried to bury. A truth whispered through dust and memory. Creation is never loyal to its creator. Destiny is never loyal to its designer. And the shortest path, it is often the one that leads us into darkness. The chronicles close this act with a quiet revelation. The Kwisatz Haderach was never the shortening of the way. He was the proof that some paths must never be shortened at all. In the quiet after the storm of visions, the chronicles return to a single, fragile truth. The Bene Gesserit dreamed of shaping humanity's future. But the future answered with a voice of its own. A voice born not from design, but from defiance. Paul Atreides was meant to be their instrument. They're in control of a miracle. Their obedient bridge across the darkness. Instead, he became the darkness they feared. A mind too vast to contain. A destiny too fierce to guide. A prophecy that turned against its prophets. And so the Sisterhood learned what history teaches again and again. Every attempt to master fate creates a fate that resists mastery. Every attempt to sculpt the perfect leader risks forging an unstoppable one. Every attempt to shorten the path risks unraveling the path entirely. In those days, the Imperium thought it understood power. But the birth of the Kwisatz Haderach revealed the deeper truth, that the greatest revolutions begin with the smallest deviations, and the greatest dangers begin with the brightest hopes. So the chronicles end with a whisper, not a warning. When you create a being to see the future, be prepared for the future to see you. For some prophecies guide, some destroy, and some become the turning point of all history. Subscribe, and remember, history always repeats, even in the Imperium.